This is Influence Now, where we focus on ideas influencing the world. Hi, welcome to Influence Now. I'm Justin Kraft, your host. I'm here with Justin Moss. So I don't know if I should call you Moss from here on out.
I'm fine with Moss, so we don't get confused.
Yeah. We've known each other a long time. Goes back, 10 years, American Marketing Association. We were on the board here in Colorado together. And you actually did a couple of award events at that time for American Marketing Association.
Yeah.
With too, which really
Good old days.
Right. And super stoked to have you, Justin. I know we're doing some things at Cast with you, and you're doing some pretty amazing stuff over at Pineapple. So I want to dig into some of that for some of our marketing, small business people, mid-sized business people, anybody that's listening. And anywhere from Under Armour to you've done stuff with Adidas to all over the board, and going back to throwing raves, I think way back in the 90s, right? So if you want to give a quick intro on who Pineapple is, I won't do it justice. So Pineapple Agency is your agency, and just so our listeners/viewers know what that is, if you can give us an intro.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I always find it really weird to talk to my computer like this, but let's have some fun. So the Pineapple Agency is an experiential marketing agency. And so for those of you that aren't in marketing and know that sort of buzz term, we produce live experiences that emotionally connect brands to consumers through these immersive events or experiences. And our goal is to create this connection, capture content, and then repurpose that content for all sorts of marketing strategies, whether it's creating a TV commercial or extending it, via the internet or digital strategy. Our goal at the end of the day is to create a before, during, and after. So how are we connecting the brand to the consumer, or in a B2B scenario, the brand to their demographic before the activation, during the activation, and then after the activation? And so that's our core capability and work. And then, as Justin mentioned, I started my career in the music business 22 years ago. And we also work on a lot of music festivals today. So we currently work on 17 of probably some of the biggest EDM music festivals in the world.
Yeah. If you want to name some, feel free to name drop, Moss.
Yeah. So we work with a great client called Insomniac Entertainment, and they produce the most recognized one is Electric Daisy Carnival, which is several different countries and states in the United States. But their biggest one is in Las Vegas, which is 164,000 people a day over 3 days.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I'm excited to have you, because the scale of stuff you're doing and always done is just shocked me. And the coolest guys I've ever met in my life. And you're always the stuff that comes out of your brain and the ideas you have. Not everyone can do what you're doing.
That's why I have no more hair, Justin.
Yeah. Well, me neither, but not for the same reason. But you're definitely a cutting edge. You have a way of coming up with outside of the box ideas that really make brands pop. And I know a lot of these might sound like bigger companies that you've worked with, but it actually can go down to kind of startup mid-sized companies.
Yeah.
And I think what gets lost is brand activation in a lot of places. We created an event for On Deck here in Denver, where they just wanted to launch an activation and a PR campaign for the Denver market. And we ended up doing that. And it was an amazing thing. And, we lose sight of that. People want to just do digital marketing. They want to just do PR. They want to just do some of these certain things. And what you really need to do is, people forget about that awareness piece.
Absolutely.
And then continuing off of that awareness piece with some kind of consistency. And that, with that activation comes, how do I get my brand to actually then engage after the fact and continue engaging and not just doing a one-off?
Yeah.
So I guess some of the bigger stuff you've done, I'd like to get into some examples so people can, kind of understand the scope and scale of what an activation really means and what's going on. And honestly, like I said, you're award winning. So what's going on in experience marketing and activation. And I think, you did something. We're working with glowing.org right now on some ocean stuff. And one of my favorite projects you've done is the Adidas project, where you had the
on the
runners.
oceans.
Yeah, with the oceans. If you can talk about some of these and where these ideas come from and how these activations work, I think that'd be really cool for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I think before I go into my spiel, if you will, I'll say I don't want to piss my digital marketing friends off, but I personally am a big believer that if a brand is not doing experiential, they're going to get lost in the clutter of marketing already today. And a lot of digital marketers are starting to shift their thought process in, sort of community-based marketing, adding experiential, not just pumping digital at the consumer, because it's all getting lost. So we feel like doing experiential and creating a strategy and a campaign around that, you're more likely to engage a consumer and keep them engaged. So some of the projects that we've done, and like you said, Justin, some of them are large, some of them are small. At the end of the day, we're a boutique agency here in Denver. We love what we do. We're very passionate about it. And we truly are partners to our clients and want to help them exceed. And we believe experiential does that. So we do take on small and large. Run the Oceans, as I babble on and on, Run the Oceans was the Adidas campaign to sort of bring awareness to the fact that at some point, I think it's 2022, Adidas plans to have 100% of their shoes and I believe apparel made out of recycled plastics from the ocean. And so they brought us in when they were doing a Run the Ocean sort of festival in downtown LA. And they wanted a way to bring awareness to this festival and what they were doing. And so we created an immersive art piece at the Santa Monica Pier. And I wish I had pictures, but you could go to our website, thepineappleagency.com. But basically, it was an 80-foot long by 20 feet wide truss structure. So the same sort of trussing that you'd see on stages at your favorite concerts or music festivals. And then it was 40 feet in the air. And on this truss structure, it's Monday, can't talk. We had a famous yarn artist come out and make a very intricate art piece with thousands and thousands of pieces of yarn that sort of mimic the movement of the waves in the ocean. And so with that campaign, we just had a couple of brand ambassadors talking about the campaign. It wasn't super interaction, except for it was a high volume in the photo moment and capturing content with consumers taking pictures of it. But it was also more just for an informational piece and an awareness piece. So that was one of my favorite projects as well, just because of what the campaign means. Another one of my favorite projects that we did for another sneaker company called Under Armour. I'm sure everybody knows Under Armour.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who they were until you mentioned them.
Well, I actually usually ask. So we did it for Steph Curry, and I actually do ask people if they know who Steph Curry is, because you never know. Not everybody's a basketball fan, but for those of you that don't know, Steph Curry is arguably one of the best players in the NBA. Brought the Warriors to 3 NBA championships. Anyway, he was coming out with a new sneaker for Under Armour, the Curry 4s, they were called. And we were brought in to figure out a way to kind of disrupt the market and sort of make a wow factor of how these were getting launched. And so ultimately the campaign was we delivered Steph Curry's new sneakers by drones off of yachts in the San Francisco Bay. And we set up 4 landing zones around Oakland and San Francisco. And then Red Interactive, a digital agency, created a digital scavenger hunt. And when launched on that morning at 10 a.m., We had hundreds of people lined up at every landing zone. The first 8 people at each landing zone got to summon the drone through a digital application and put their shoe size in and their data. And then the drone literally flew off of a yacht and delivered the signed autographed sneakers to the consumer. So ultimately that amounted to about 180 million impressions over the life of the campaign. So quite an extensive, awesome campaign.
Yeah, an awareness factor, just massive. And I think and uniqueness. Like that's what people want now is uniqueness of some sort. Like you said, even when we're not that you don't need to do digital marketing and you don't need to do PR.
You absolutely do, yeah.
But figuring out a way to wrap all that around an experience like one of these, not that it has to be at the scale like the Steph Curry drop is.
Exactly, yeah.
Could be something else. Like what we did with On Deck was a little smaller scale where we created an event around basically we knew their target market was small business. So we created a opportunity for small businesses to come pitch their business and win actual money to help fund their business. So not only was it community centric, activation centric to an awareness centric toward their exact target market. And it allowed them to do campaigns around it, PR around it, everything around it. So when you're thinking about doing any kind of marketing, I think activation should be one of the core components that you're thinking about doing, especially if your company is at that tipping point where, okay, I need to decide, do I want to grow this company? Am I happy with where it's at right now? Because if you want to grow it, you have to create awareness.
Absolutely. I mean, to your point, it doesn't always have to be this big, gigantic, delivering stuff by drone strategy. But like I said earlier, I'm a believer that experiential marketing has a place for everyone. And at the end of the day, experiential marketing goes back to the early days of sampling on the boardwalk in the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. We call it experiential now because we used technology and I hate to say it, but it's kind of a buzzword. But I think that every brand, small and large, can benefit from getting involved in, connecting with their consumer in the real world. I mean, now we're starting to see a movement to get kids and adults alike off their phones and into the outdoors. And obviously you and I, Justin, see it a lot out here in Colorado because we have so much outdoors to love and enjoy. But, as a marketer, we're looking for ways to now get people off their small phone and their computer into the real world and then back on their phone and figure out a way to market to them, So, and that's what I think experiential does.
Yeah. How do you pull the technology into an experience versus just pushing something through a phone because it's trackable, basically. Like that's what marketers want to see, right? Is that ROI. But really what this brings to the table, it's hard to track the funnel all the way back to one of these massive events, but or even an activation, but yeah, but you can't, if you can work in a digital component to it without making it so digital, I think that's the key. And I think, we hear this a lot from our clients. I don't know if you hear, not being as much into the digital marketing side of things, Justin, is we went to that trade show 2 years ago and it just didn't work for us.
Oh, we hear it all the time.
And then you ask them, well, what did you do? Oh, we had a booth. We had a really nice display. We did a survey. Okay.
It's a common thread. I mean, I've been hearing, I've been involved in experiential now since 2007, 2008-ish. And we started doing trade show booths really early on. And the reason we started doing them was because our clients would come to us and say, you did these great experiences. How do we amp up our trade show experience? And I learned very quickly that when a smaller brand is next to Coca-Cola or, a bigger brand in their sector, it's really hard for them to attract people at the trade show. And like you, I used to laugh and say, well, what are you doing? Well, we have a booth and we have a candy bowl out and we sit there. And so we started getting really aggressive in the trade show space in the sense that we really were trying to educate our clients. Like, sometimes you don't even need a booth. What can that experience be? And how can that experience start before the trade show, once again, during the trade show and after the trade show? And we've had a lot of success. I mean, we recently did a trade show experience for a really cool new electric car company called Rivian, which is coming out with the first all-wheel drive electric truck. And now they're Jeff Bezos, Amazon backed. And it was about creating that experience and bringing awareness to their brand. Sure, we built a really cool looking booth, but it was how do we interact with the attendee at the booth versus, the passive approach of just sitting there and letting them walk around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess a good question for you, Justin, would be along the lines of if I'm a marketer, an in-house marketer for one of these companies, even a smaller company. I know you recently did also kind of a smaller experience for a kind of a health foods fair thing.
Yeah, for Laura's Lean.
For Laura's Lean, yeah. And I'm curious what you would recommend how to go about the process of coming up with an idea for an experience, or what you want to do and how do you want to accomplish that. I think it'd be really helpful.
Sure, that's easy. Just call me. Kidding aside, from experience, I mean, I can share is that we are like any other marketer where we try to dive into everything we can about your brand, about your competitor, and of course about the market. As far as the ideas and where they come from, I'm a big believer in that you never know where a good idea is going to come from. So, in our agency, we invite everybody from account managers to, designers to our fabricating team to kind of be involved in the creative process. We feel like that has gotten us some great ideas. For me personally, I pull inspiration from a lot of different places. I guess I'm a little bit of a weird bird. Like when I'm trying to create, I'm definitely looking on the internet. I start with images. So I'll usually look at images of either the brand or the product. So if it's a car company, let's say, I'll start looking at images of car companies, whether it's the actual car, whether it's another marketing strategy they've already done, or, even if it's just lifestyle images of people driving around in a car. So I try to pull from all different areas for my inspiration. What we normally do is we just kind of throw out a shit ton of ideas on the whiteboard. We go all the way from crazy to, passive to easy to produce to really, really hard to produce. And usually from that, we're able to narrow it down to 5 to 6 ideas that we really want to start exploring. And, I don't like to use the word blow out, but sort of blow out those ideas. And then we have to kind of take a step back and say, all right, are these ideas really executable? Like the drone project, at that point, drones were not interacting with humans. They were delivering products, as we all hear on the news, that Amazon and other places are testing them, but drones weren't interacting with consumers. So we had to take a step back and say, all right, how do we execute this? And the biggest question, as most marketers know, is how much does it cost? So if our client gives us a $50,000 budget, just throwing a random number, we can't give them a $250,000 idea. We can, but we know chances are they're not gonna green like that. So we then really back up and we look at our ideas and we say, is it executionable? Is it on brand? And most importantly, is it going to engage the consumer the way we want to, and ultimately get us the ROI or the KPI that the client wants?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you hit on a lot of key things there in the process, because Also involvement. I think you might have jumped over something, that is involvement of their internal team as well.
Correct. Yeah.
And, I'm curious if you do. I actually already know the answer to this, but when you involve the internal team, because we do stuff like this too, where we want to involve the internal team as much as possible. Do you then coach them on what are you going to do after this? What's your plan to take from this activation, and how does that usually go?
Yeah, we definitely do. And the idea behind experiential also is, can we repeat it? Is it a one-off, a PR stunt, like the drone drop once again? Or is it a tour that we update and renew every year, but we're constantly evolving and learning from it? We do have clients that actually, which is exciting, when they come to us with an idea, and then we help them sort of work the strategy into that. What is the before, during, and after? We have clients that come to us with just an idea of a tactic, and then we create a strategy around it. Or we have clients that come to us with full ideas and strategies, and then we just figure out a way to execute it in the real world. But yeah, we definitely try to work with our clients the best we can. At the end of the day, clients are going to do what they think is best. But as a partner to them, we definitely try to coach them and figure out what is the best practices, to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know we're basically running out of time here, Justin, but I think if there's any kind of just any advice you can give a marketer that's thinking about going into this space, you got like one key thing for them to think about, what would that be? And then we can maybe jump off this, and I'd love to have you back.
I'd love to come back. What a hard question. There's so many. I would probably say, try to put yourself in the consumer's mindset, and what not necessarily what they'd be looking for, because sometimes a consumer doesn't know what they're looking for until they get it. But what's going to engage them? What's going to get them out of bed and go to your activation? Or even if it's a digital campaign or starts digital, what's going to get them to log on to your website or your social media channels and engage them? And I think that's probably the best advice and the hardest thing to do, because as marketers, we're so used to just marketing to a consumer. And now, like I learned in producing music festivals and concerts, you have to do things to get people out of bed to buy a ticket and come to that show. Well, as marketers, we need to do that now with brands and products. So that's my best advice, I think.
Well, and you're fighting budget constraints. We understand this, right? You're fighting budget constraints internally. You're fighting, CFOs or whoever else, operations people that don't want to say things, or they're scared to, think a little outside the box.
Or they don't believe in experiential. You're also fighting what's going on in the rest of your city or state or country, because Denver happens to be a very popular place right now, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of community events. There's a lot of food festivals, concerts, all sorts of stuff to do. So when you're trying to market to a consumer on getting or joining your activation or getting involved in your digital campaign, you have to now think about all that other stuff that's going on. Whereas if I want to just put up a billboard, I put up a billboard and you're going to get the eyeballs driving by it or walking by it. So it's very different these days.
Mm-hmm. Well, Justin, I could expand on that too, because then how is it that you draw from eyeballs looking at a billboard to something else off of what you put on the billboard? That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it's a whole nother conversation.
We could probably have a whole another podcast just on that one topic.
We could probably have a few dozen podcasts.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Just shooting the shit and talking marketing with me on Influence Now. And I think, for those listening, Justin and I are kind of kicking around the idea of actually doing a really cool podcast together to really expand on a lot of these topics, also involving some other guests potentially. But
Yeah.
we, between the two of us, we got so much going on in this space and have so many great connections. I think it'd be valuable to all of you, all the listeners. And it's been extremely valuable, I think, having you on today, Justin. And
Yeah, thanks for having me.
yeah, we'll talk soon.